Hi, I'm Bishop Allyson Abrams. Welcome to the Bishop Allyson Abrams Show, where I believe truth empowers. Each week, I will bring topics to you that I believe you should be made aware of. I will give you my professional opinion on the topics and probably some necessary suggestions too. We will talk politics. We will talk religion. We will talk real estate, health, and education. I have some great topics to share with you on today, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. I am excited today to have the special guest that I have in the studio. We have Rayceen Pendarvis in the studio with us on today. Rayceen is a DC native and is a legend all across the world. And so we are honored that Rayceen is here with us on today. I know Rayceen has been working in the LGBT community for a long time, many years, is known, like I said, all across the globe for being an activist and for all the wonderful work that he's been doing. Rayceen also is a nail technician. I don't want to forget that because you might need your nails done. And so you can always see Rayceen to get your nails done in the city, as well as if you want to come from the suburbs into the city, you can always see Rayceen about that. Rayceen has a wonderful show, the Ask Rayceen Show, and it's been around for, I believe, about at least 3 years. And so we're excited about that. Rayceen, I remember meeting you at the Swerve Magazine Christmas party 2 years ago when Jamil introduced me to you. And I knew at that point that you were a superstar. And so I remember that. And I want to say congratulations on being named one of the 100 outstanding personalities of color for 2015 given by the G List. And so that just shows you're doing some awesome things around the country. So I want to begin the interview with you by asking first, what gives Rayceen joy? This is Advent season, and so as we come to the close of that, I want to ask you what gives Rayceen joy? What gives you joy on today?
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Once again, I am Rayceen Pendarvis. I am very happy to be here. It is what gives me joy. Helping others is my greatest joy. Being able to be a vessel for so many people in my community, being able to be a light in my community, being able to live in my passion and walk in my purpose is such a blessing. And however the higher power sees fit, I'm going to be humble, and I'm going to be used in many ways. So I feel honored that I've been able to be a bridge in my community because I believe that someone has to stand up for everyone. That's and right. To be able to be a voice for especially for our T in the LGBT, yes. For our trans women and trans men. I identify with being a self-described gender blender. So I'm very comfortable with who I am. I am a father of 5 and a mother of many. And the queen Wonderful. Of shameless plugs. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Wonderful. I love it. I love it. And so now, how long have you been an LGBT activist? How many years have you been a voice for the voiceless and helping the helpless? How long have you been doing that work?
Wow. I think all my life I've been able to stand up. I remember being in the playground in elementary, standing up for injustices. But especially when our community, in my community, and I think for about almost 40 years now, I've been doing this for about 40 years now, being a voice and being a light. And I'm so grateful to be here. First of all, I'm so grateful to be here today, you know, and to be blessed and to be sitting with you and to be in this place talking about my life, talking about my experience. What a joy. So to be able to share a 40-year journey, how amazing is that? To be able to say I've seen so many changes yes. in our life. We've seen so many changes in this community. And with the 30 years into the HIV epidemic and AIDS, and to be able to see a light at the end of the tunnel, to be able to see and to be able to talk about PrEP and PEP, and
Yes.
talk about how it's changing people's lives, and be able to. I was recently had the privilege to go to California and be a part of the Outreach LA and Gilead Pharmaceuticals to be a PrEP representative.
Wow.
To be able to be an advocate and talk about PrEP and PEP and talk about the importance of getting the information with the, especially with PrEP, you know, and seeing a doctor, getting prescribed PEP, and know all the full ramifications around PrEP, good,
Yes.
bad, and otherwise,
Right.
and be able to have honest conversations in our community about that. So I'm really grateful and exciting on the eve of the election, on the eve of change with gay marriage, equality, with the Black Lives Movement.
Yes.
You know, and talking about how we see ourselves in the Black Lives movie, our LGBT community, that all lives matter, trans lives matter, Black lives matter, all lives matter, to be
Well,
able.
let me go back now. I know you've, having been in this movement for 40 years and being an activist in the community, I know that you've seen a lot. And so I would say, I want to say that I hope that this is an accurate statement, that you would have some level of joy and peace knowing that people can live today. Because I come from a community when I was living in DC before I left and moved to Michigan, where many people who were diagnosed with HIV have died, have passed on. And there are so many people who have transitioned because they didn't have the medications they have today, didn't have the assistance they have today, didn't have all the education and knowledge that's available for us today. So can I say that, you know, you have some level of joy, satisfaction,
I do
gratitude
have an
where we
extreme joy.
progressed today?
Oh my God, I'm really blessed and grateful, and to be able to see people living and having normal lives, and letting people know that HIV and AIDS is not what it used to be, and to take away the stigma
Yes.
from it, and to be able to say that it's a manageable disease like cancer or diabetes, and to see people living and existing and walking in their purpose. And I mean, I never thought I would see, and almost, to be honest, here we are on the eve with the whole PrEP, PEP, and so many drugs being introduced, and almost a cure.
Yes.
So it lets you know that even though man is so important, that I know that there's a higher power
Yes.
guiding man's hand.
Amen.
So I
Amen.
know that through all of that, it all coincides.
And it's wonderful because also on the same vein, people can be in relationship with persons who are positive and now be protected from that being transferred to them. And I was excited to hear about that. I know one person who participated in one of those programs, and I forget how long the program was, but I know that it did work. And so there are wonderful results to show that people can be protected if they happen to be in a relationship with someone who happens to be HIV positive,
How about
which
that?
is tremendous progress.
Whew.
Tremendous
How about that? To be able
today.
to have a choice.
Yes.
To decide that if I choose to do what I do,
Yes.
I'm okay with it.
Right.
And not to have the stigma of, if I choose not to use condoms in my committed relationship, I'm all right with that.
Exactly.
And not be judged by people around me. And you know, I feel like I've been really blessed to be able to be a vessel, and to be able to talk to people and not be judgmental of anybody, and to make them feel comfortable enough sharing their experiences.
Rayceen, I know that many years ago you had the House of Pendarvis, and actually one of the members of my church was a part of the House of Pendarvis. Can you share with us a little bit about that? I know it's taking you back a little bit, but share with us about the House of Pendarvis.
Yes, well, I'm honored to be a member of the House of Pendarvis, and actually it was founded by Avis Pendarvis, who is a native Washingtonian, born and raised, but she started the house back in the late 60s, along with the 4 other houses that this whole ballroom has exploded from, and that was Dorian Corey, Paris Dupree, Pepper LaBeija, who became the second mother after Crystal LaBeija, and then it was Avis Pendarvis. So those were the 4 original houses, and from there now you have all these wonderful houses like the House Extravaganza, the House of Revlon, the House of Dupree, the House of Saint Laurent, you know, the House of Allure, the House of Cannes, and just, I mean, and it's all over the world, which is amazing. I mean, the kids are voguing in Europe, in Russia, in China, and they were even voguing on the Wiz just recently.
I was
and
told
Emerald
about that.
City, they were voguing down, and I
Yes.
was screaming. I was, in fact, holding my niece, tweeting, saying, I know that the ballroom children in heaven are looking down, and it lets you know, wow, how we've evolved.
And so the purpose of the houses, give us that, because my member told me a little bit, but just for those people who are watching that may need to know, some of you I know need to know what the purpose was. So what was the purpose of establishing these houses in our community?
Well, I would say that they came out of a need. A need that, you know, that many times that unfortunately that choosing to be gay, lesbian, or transgender, and during a time in the 60s, a very turbulent time, many had to find ways of existing.
Yes.
So especially with the trans community,
Yes.
forming houses became out of a necessity, a need to create something and create something that was their own. So you had the trans community, transgender women and transgender men who came and competed in balls where that was their own thing. It was like, if you're a dishwasher by day, you're a queen at night.
Okay.
And being able to compete and being able to create this wonderful, elaborate community and creating a wonderful fellowship within it. You know, even though it was competition, but it was a way that we all got together and we all came together. And this was something that was created by Black, gay, Latin, transgender community. And out of many of and especially in New York, where, you know, all the fierce balls were uptown. You know, all the fierce balls were uptown.
They were more fierce in D.C.?
Yeah, they were most, I mean, because they were held like 3 times a year.
Okay.
So people would compete go to New York and compete for those balls, go to like DC or Philly or Chicago or various cities and compete, but they weren't like every month like they are now.
Okay.
They were like maybe 4 times a year, and they were elaborate balls, and they were wonderful. And I remember the first time I went, it was like Alice in Wonderland. And to create these houses where you have a mother and you have a father and you have the members, and they take on the last name, so it's like a family. But now to see it grow to this international status, where I feel like, because we're one of the older houses, we have now broken the House of Pendarvis up into chapters across the country. In Midwest, in Vegas, Desiree Pendarvis, her house is all showgirls, so they compete in Miss Continental, Miss Gay USA. They all compete. They don't walk the balls. They're all pageant girls, so they compete. And then we have those in Chicago and those in Atlanta, where each region is almost like a sorority or fraternity.
Yes, it sounds like it.
Where we raise money for AIDS awareness, for scholarships, for different things. So I feel like now, especially with the House of Pendarvis, even though we don't compete as much, we have now evolved into social active.
Yes.
So we've become a social active house full of activism and activists who are going out doing things greater than ourselves, and, you know, working around mental health, homelessness, addiction, you know, speaking out, because I think if mental health is the gateway to everything.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times people don't talk about mental health because it's stigmatized.
Yes.
So, and I think that's one of my biggest platforms.
Okay.
So that's my biggest thing. So under that umbrella of mental health comes addiction, homelessness, HIV, youth
Absolutely.
issues, and a whole lot of things, and evolving around that. So it's amazing. I think Avis is looking down from heaven now and saying her legacy is greater than what she even envisioned.
It's wonderful when it can evolve to something greater, and that's why, you know, I always like to say that, you know, God's vision and God's purpose for us is always larger than we would ever dream or imagine.
How about that?
And so all we have to do is do our small part, and God will do the rest. So thank God for Miss Avis Pendarvis.
Yes.
And the legacy that she left that has now evolved into something that nobody ever knew it could be.
How about
and
that?
also, the Paris is Burning now. I understand that you moderated a screening at the Smithsonian. So how was that?
Humbling, very humbling, because I couldn't believe when I got the call But I guess when you do the work,
Yes.
how about that? When you
Yes.
do the work,
Uh-huh.
the call will come. So, and to be able to bring so many people into it and be able to see a standing room
Wow.
only, we had to turn people away because
Wow.
it was that packed. And then to be able to have a second showing with real affirmation, have
Yes.
another standing room
Yes.
only, and had to
Yes.
turn people away.
Yes.
So on the 25 years of celebrating Paris is Burning, it lets you know that their legacy that Avis, Paris, Dorian, and Peppa created was bigger than themselves. That the lingo that you hear in Real Housewives or Married to Medicine is the lingo that came from our own community that now it's mainstream.
Yes, yes, that is so wonderful. I want to shift you a little bit because as a bishop, as a pastor, I always like to ask people in our community about their faith. And so I want to ask you, where's your faith today? Because a lot of people across the land feel as if it's an oxymoron to be LGBTQIA and Christian.
How about
and
that?
so people feel like you have to choose, be one or the other. But I like to speak on platforms, national platforms, and tell people there is an intersectional point where your faith does meet your sexuality, and you don't have to abandon either. You can be both and so, you know, I'm very glad that the times that I've come to the Ask Rayceen show, I've heard you talk about faith, being a person of faith. I've heard you talk about being a person who believes in God, believes in the higher power, and you even had some support from the audience.
How about that?
And so now today, where's your faith into 2016?
Wow, my faith is, if I identify myself, first and foremost, before I identify as being black, gay, a son, a father, a mother, a brother, I identify first as a child of God.
Amen.
And that is how I identify myself. So my religion is a part of my being and my essence
Yes.
of who I am. It is every inch of who I am. I am definitely walking in my faith and understanding my purpose. And sometimes it becomes overwhelming. And what I learned is when you embrace God and know God and understand who He is, you learn to meet people wherever they are in that
Yes.
intersection on your faith and your walk and your highway. So I think because I'm a child of God, I accept people wherever they are, people who are Wiccan, people who are Jewish, people who are Muslim, people who are not even God, who are atheists.
Yes.
I have wonderful conversations with friends of mine who are atheists, and we meet people in the work that we do about coming together, and they accept who I am, and I accept and believe it, because even in them not believing, when we have conversations about God and about
Come on, bring
understanding
it
the
around.
work
Yes.
and doing what you do and walking your purpose, when God is in the purpose of everything they do, the walk that they help their community, that's God showing them
Right.
that He's right there.
You're absolutely
So
right.
even if they don't believe in Him, He's still there.
Yes. Yes.
And we have that understanding that if you don't believe, I'm going to show you that He will show up every time.
Would you say they don't have an acknowledgement, but they have to say that there is some existence, some proof, some level of God's handymanship
And I
around
think that
them?
and me coming and meeting with them and working with them, it shows up. It
Yes.
shows up in the things that we do. It is presence. It present, and His presence or her presence is right there every time. So I just meet people where they are on their walk. But even though I grew up in United House of Prayer for All People,
Okay.
that's where I grew up, shouting, praising, worshiping and honoring God. And
You
I
know
thank
how to
God.
run the floor if you
Yes,
grew up in
honey, we
House of
will run
Prayer.
the floor and shout and praise. And I love that, the fact that, first of all, in being a child of God, I love the fact that my mother, who is my greatest champion, who loved me and accepted me, and I honor her in everything I do because she allowed me to be who I was, and allowed me to walk with her on her faith and our faith, and letting me be, and never ever once did I ever felt like I was less than. So when you know that and understand that, it's such a purpose greater than yourself. And I just want to applaud you and thank you on your faith walk and your understanding, and whenever I call you to be a part of bringing us together about understanding the relationship with LGBT and God, whenever I call you, just to say yes and I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always an honor to be a part of the Ask Rayceen show and anything that you're doing. And I want to continue on this vein before I move to the next thing. Now, what do you believe should happen with those who've used religion, and we've all heard them, use religion as an excuse to hate and to kill LGBT Christians and to kill the spirit of those who are the LGBT community? I've seen so many times where persons have said, if you're in the church, you need to be delivered. They've gone through deliverance services and the folks are still the same. And so now, what do you believe should happen? And I do lots of talking with members of my church in Silver Spring and even with people across the globe about how Scripture, we have misinterpreted Scripture and we've totally missed the truth of what was being said. And so many people are promoting untruths today. And so I talk about the miseducation of the Christian, just like you remember years ago there was miseducation of the black man. And so today, I just want to ask, what do you think should happen with some of these folks? Because some of these folks need to pay for some of the stuff they've done to persons in our community that were people of faith, and they've driven them out of the church. They've driven them away from God. They've driven them away from that spiritual connection, and they're walking around empty. They're walking around empty, wishing they could still have that connection.
I always say that broken people work in their brokenness. Mm-hmm. And even with some people who say that they are Christians or God-fearing, who don't understand, who really can't say, how can I love God but condemn others?
Yes.
So that tells me that something is not connecting with you. Mm-hmm. Because first of all, if we go back and we really reference the Bible and be very clear in our walk in faith, even when Jesus came to save us, mm-hmm. he forgave those who were persecuting him. Mm-hmm. So I believe that through our love and our understanding of God, that if we continue to love those who hate us, mm-hmm. we show them that God is present in our essence, in our being of who we are. And eventually, mm-hmm. they have to question their foolishness. And they have to question their stupidity when they keep hating on a group of people.
Yes.
And the people that they are condemning and persecuting on are loving them. Mm-hmm. And sitting down and saying, you may not love me, but you're going to respect me.
Yes, exactly.
And everything that you do, I will show you that God is present in the essence of who I am. And those who have been broken by the church, that they need to start doing the work to heal. Mm-hmm. And saying, wait a minute, God didn't reject me, man did.
That's right, that's right, that's right. And I believe they need to be receptive to places that can help them heal. One of the problems is they go right back to places that have abused them. And some people, I feel like, and I don't know if you'll have the same opinion, but some people in our community like abuse. It seems like they stay in places that abuse them, especially in churches. Now, if the preacher has talked against you and talked about you each Sunday, then why would you continue to be in this place of abuse? Go somewhere where you can be affirmed, go somewhere where you can be loved, go somewhere where you can hear the truth of God, go somewhere where you can be authentic and really be in your truth and be liberated. That was one of the reasons I named the church. God told me to make sure that people were being liberated. Mm. That's one of the reasons that we have that as a part of our name. God said to empower the community. So that's why our church is Empowerment Liberation, because that's what we're about. And so our people need to come out of these places where they're in bondage and not being able to be free, and go into a place where you can receive healing, where you can live your truth and be authentic and just have the peace and joy of God that you so truly deserve.
How about that?
I just really want to see how people do that.
How do they find that? It's almost like the slave who's been beat down by the master.
Exactly.
It's that mentality.
And even the people who made the Exodus out of Egypt, some of them wanted to go back. So, the master was feeding us good over there. And he needs away for stuff. We don't want
Fear keeps people from moving forth.
Yes.
And then when I tell people, when you are working in fear, do the work around all of that. Mental health goes back to that. Mm-hmm. Do it. Find a therapist. Find a pastor. Find a group of people. I always say, find yourself a good good group of golden girls that will affirm you
Yeah, I
every
love the Golden
time.
Girls.
You know, and everybody needs a Rose, a
Yes.
Blanche,
Honey,
a
yes.
Sophia,
Yes.
and a Dorothy to affirm them on a daily basis. That
Yes.
and then it helps you along that way get better. You know,
Yes.
and wanting to be free of all the pain, free of all the hurt, free of doubting yourself.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and you know, and I think getting to this point in my life, I mean, even I had moments in my life where I doubted who I was and doubted, can I be feminine, embrace my femininity, and respect my manhood.
Yes.
And see, when you find that peace with all that and your spirituality, you understand who you are. You can have all that. It's like being the two spiritual people
Yes.
that are part of our journey. And when people don't embrace that and reject that and don't celebrate it, it gets stagnated and die.
Well, I'm so glad, Rayceen, that you have embraced your twin spirit and glad that you have done the healing work that needed to happen. There you have it, everybody. We just talked with the legendary Rayceen Pendarvis, DC native. And I want to suggest that you follow Rayceen on Twitter, find Rayceen on Facebook, and find Rayceen on Instagram. All right, and once again, Rayceen, thank you so much. We love you, we appreciate you, and thank you so much for being a voice for the voiceless and doing all that you do.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored and humbled.
Well, looks like it's that time again. I want to thank you for always tuning in to the Bishop Allyson Abrams Show, where we are committed to discussing new and exciting topics that are sure to stir your soul. The Bishop Allyson Abrams Show is the place where you can be sure to hear trending topics and honest opinion. We discussed some great topics today. I hope that you were moved by what you heard. Remember now, tune in each week to our show. And as always, truth empowers.
Hi, I'm Rayceen Pendarvis, and I've been chosen to be a PrEP ambassador by the United Ballroom. I want you to understand that PrEP and PEP prevents the spread of HIV and AIDS. But along with PrEP and PEP, use condoms, safety, see your doctor, and get proper information.
You see, church, I just believe that we would really